So I'm here with my friend and mentor, Jack Zimmerman, and my wife and children and I have come to visit him here in his home on the Big Island of Hawaii. And I just have a couple questions for Jack. Since we're here visiting, I thought I'd take the opportunity to share some of this beautiful elder's wisdom with those who are interested in learning from it. So my first question, Jack, is with all your experience with the Way of Counsel. For those of you who don't know, Jack is the author of the Way of Counsel and also the book Flesh and Spirit, which is taking the counsel work into intimate relationship as couples and partners. With all of your work in the counsel world, what do you feel like has been the most sort of the biggest gem that has come from being involved in this counsel work? Where did it come from, and how did it
it's hard to say biggest, but I can just plunge in.
Mm.
What comes up with that question is counsel is ancient, so it carries the shamanic vision. And one aspect of the shamanic, there's two aspects of the shamanic vision that are important, I think, very much in how we've experienced counsel. One is the shadow is the doorway. The unconsciousness in the moment is the fertile territory. And the inspiration of counsel is to open that doorway, to take that risk, because you've built a container which is going to support you, a container that is basically affirmation of looking at the unconscious. And that which you don't know yet, that which doesn't have to be bad. Sometimes, it could be something joyous. That is what's unconscious. In fact, for a lot of people, I think that is the case. The other thing is that I have come to believe that the shamanic tradition is moving now in a fundamental way from the individual shaman on the edge of the village to shamanic community, to everything is animated. The shamanic vision is that there's life in every breath, there's life in every blade of grass, there's life in every creature, of course, and there's life in every stone and every part of the earth. And that message we're giving birth to again, I hope, and we're doing it in a relational context. And that's the part of counsel which is so magical, that it is a relational tool. When you sit in counsel with just one other person, the relationship is there too. And that's the heart of the flesh and spirit practice. And when you sit in a circle, there are other beings present. There are other presences, other consciousness present, and we don't have big names for them anymore. We call it the third, even when it's a circle. The empty seat, the visiting mystery. So that dimension is so important. The voice unheard, the presence unseen, is often that which brings things into focus again and into the heart of things. And the heart of things reminds me that another way of talking about the evolution, which I didn't mention to you before, is that I have come to believe, and this is simplistic, but it does represent, I think, the big movement. We're moving from the mind-heart, mind-centered, loving person, to the heart-mind. The intelligence is heart intelligence. It's a different kind of intelligence. First of all, it's beyond words. So that logos and scripture and this is the truth and all that has to be handled gently and lightly. And the language of the heart is love, of course, as consciousness, as acknowledging the interaction. I'm sitting here with you, and I'm acknowledging in this moment all the years that we've known each other. I'm acknowledging that we shared living in the same house on the same piece of land, at different times, intensely, and at other times overlapping. All that's present. I don't need to say the words. When I look at you and you look at me, that's there in the context.
Beautiful. So counsel as this relational shamanic art that is very much about a new paradigm of how we do our inner healing work. We can do it in our intimate relationships with our lovers, our wives, our husbands. We can do it in community. We can do it even with ourself in this sort of container, this invoked container of counsel with nature.
Yes, we do counsel in nature. Every piece of land that even if it's concrete covered, the land underneath, the history of that becomes part of the counsel. We can do counsel with our children. That is so important, so that they have a voice and they learn to listen while they're young, and that's really essential. And yes, it's an awakening. It's an awakening in counsel.
And so this counsel, for those who may be watching this that don't have familiarity with this word counsel, the way of counsel, as you wrote in the book, I highly recommend the book if you can get it. It's on Amazon, right? You sell it online. It's a wonderful book. And what is counsel in the most? What makes counsel and this way of counsel different than day-to-day life?
I once brought, Jacqueline and I once brought counsel to the Vipassana community at Spirit Rock. And one of the teachers, after a long weekend, said, "Oh, counsel is Vipassana with words." So counsel is the place of silence and words that are deeply meditative. When you're listening from the heart, you're speaking your authentic truth as best you can, and you're being witnessed. The heart of spirituality is being witnessed, self-witnessing and witnessing of other. That's really, if you read scripture, often that's a part of it. And in counsel, we're all witnessing each other, and so there's an equality of witnessing. There's no hierarchy. So it opens up. A child's voice may be the voice that you really want to hear. So it's an old practice. It's probably the most original practice, storytelling around the fire, listening deeply to each other. And in remembering it now, we're hopefully literally remembering our beingness, making a new body that will learn to listen. The world is desperate for deep listening, And without that, there isn't communication. There's two-dimensional versions of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm reminded of this concept, the spiritual teaching of when we have a greater witnessing consciousness of our life and ourselves and the journey we're on, we can kind of understand the arc of the journey and not get caught up too much in the weeds or in the details of what's happening in the moment, but see everything as a gift and as food for our growth, as compost. If it's something shitty, then we just have to compost it, learn to work with that and do alchemy to where we can actually grow from it.
Let it go, let it break down, and let it nourish, a new plant. Exactly. And the ability to do that is very challenging because we get very identified with whatever it is that we have in the moment. And we're in that place now. Composting is a good metaphor. There's another metaphor, too, that's up now. Traditionally, the shaman was at the edge of the village, an individual person who was supported by the village. And being at the edge of the village was important so that there wasn't the marketplace energy. Well, that's not, it got us to this point, but it's not enough. It's not enough to take the next step. The marketplace has become so dominant in our culture, whatever, as a metaphor of cities and busyness and economics, that we need the shamanic in the marketplace.
That's very interesting.
So the shaman is moving in, and it's not a single shaman now. It's a relational, it's a circle. It's the circle consciousness. The individual isn't sufficient to evolve as an individual. Without the gift, the magic of what happens in council, that sense of synergy. Third consciousness is basically synergy. What you and I can do alone, you're capable.
Hmm.
But what we can do together is at a whole different level.
You've mentioned this third consciousness a few times today in our council earlier, and what exactly is third consciousness? Could you define that for those who don't know?
It's elusive, but I can try. Um, Third consciousness is intrinsically relational consciousness.
Mm.
So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at somebody that I've known for a long time. And what I'm aware of is the relationship between us and your relationship with your children and your primary relationship with Sarah. And all of that is present in this awareness. I walk into a room, I don't see a collection of individuals. I see the connections between the individuals, literally the web of interaction. Um, Third consciousness is characterized by the witnessing capacity. You feel when you sit in the center and you have that third pillow and people can take it, you're in a totally different consciousness. And it is that quality that people refer to as spiritual. It also is a harbor. It's a place of being held. Council is like a container. It is a container in its best, not leaky, hopefully.
Mm.
And there's this agreement to be safe enough to take the risk of being with integrity and being honest, really honest to what you say. And even more importantly, in some ways, listening beyond judgment. And that's the heart path. The heart mind is capable of moving beyond judgment. And judgment becomes perception. There's a difference between perception and judgment.
I love that the wind chimes started to chime right as you said heart path, and it's like ding.
Yeah.
That's like a special little sign from nature and the wind there to just emphasize the heart path and the wisdom that council brings as a practice for being in the heart and being of a way that evokes the heart energy with self, others, and natural world.
As a state of consciousness, yes, love is a feeling, and love is can be the subject or the object, of a relationship. And when we use that heart path phrase, now we're talking about consciousness. We're talking about awareness of interaction with nature, with everything that is sentient, and with the stone people, with all of it. They're aware of the relationship in the moment, and that's beginning to happen. It's beginning to move in that direction, so that the illusion of individuality is seen as such. And of course, we have a body, and you can move, and I can move, but your movement affects my movement, and my movement affects your movement, even if it's subtle.
Yeah.
And that is real. That's real. And that's the reality we celebrate in Council.
Excellent. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. So the last question I'd like to ask, and I feel like there's a lot of people out there in the world today that they're just not really clear on what the meaning of life is, or what's the purpose, or what is it all about. And I know it's there's hundreds of answers out there. No one has the truth or the meaning of life, but in the greater picture, from all your experience with these different spiritual teachers and medicine ways, and sharing this deep work, what do you feel like is the most important thing that people can hold in their consciousness, almost as a mantra, as you mentioned earlier, as something that if there's any message that you can get to maybe the young people of our world today, or just anyone who's struggling to find meaning and purpose in their life, what would you say to those people?
Well, I would say some of the things we've already talked about, which is to be moving, to live your life as a practice, to move from the mind-heart in the Western world, particularly into the heart-mind. The way I often look at it is that this incredible, 14 billion years, is an experiment. I mean, it's this incredible experiment to see if, as the species called the human and all the other species that we relate to, if we can find something which we're calling the consciousness of love in order for this planet and other places in the universe can actually function as home. It's an experiment. And there are times in recent years where it doesn't look very hopeful. Right. And yet at the same time, there is this incredible movement happening now in the midst of the darkness. So what is the meaning? The meaning is it's an experiment of love. Can we be in the consciousness of love and live in a world? This has been the question from the very beginning. And the no's have been loud in terms of behavior. And yet there is a vision arising even now in the midst of the darkness. And maybe we have to get into the deep, deep darkness that exists now in order for that to really emerge. For us to see that evolution is going to be conscious now. It's not going to happen to us. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen because we participate in a way that is hard to imagine people really collectively evolving. I mean, that sounds almost insane, but that's essentially what we're being asked to do.
Beautiful. So kind of being these co-creators in this human experiment of, can we find right relationship? Can we find a loving and holistic, integrated way of being on this planet or not? And with the awareness that life is happening for us, not happening to us.
Exactly. And that includes not only the human species, but the incredible, variety of species, which is still incredible, even though we're losing some of it, and the plant world, and the stone people, and the heart of the earth itself, which we still don't know and understand. Mm-hmm. So it has to really be very inclusive. It has to be inclusive in order to really do it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Jack. I know you got some other writing projects you got to work on, so we won't take too much more of your time. But if people want to learn more about your work, there's the book The Way of Counsel. There's the book The Flesh and Spirit, which is, the subtitle is
The Mystery of Intimate Relationship.
The Mystery of Intimate Relationship. It's a wonderful book. And
you're
also working on it.
There's a newer book which came out a couple of years ago called Jack and Jacqueline. It's a relational memoir. And it's the subtitle is An Adventure in Evolutionary Intimacy. Because we came to believe that intimacy itself was evolving. And we use the word intimacy because it's somehow less association with that word than there is with love. Love is, in the English language, love is covers such a multitude of relational issues. So intimacy is evolving too. The ability to really be with somebody, to merge in ways that are conscious, self-witnessing, and productive, creative, artful, fun, even fun.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
And you're working on your fourth book?
I'm working on another book, which is the sequel to J&J.
Okay.
J&J anticipated that relationship might continue after one of the two people cross the veil. And the sequel, which I'm tentatively calling The Cohesion of Love, is what I experienced, actually, when it happened.
When Jacqueline passed. And so you're writing about the experience of continuing to be in relationship with her as your lover and your intimate partner,
right,
on the other
right,
side.
And how that affected my relationship with my children, my adult children, with my grandchildren, how it affected my relationship with dear friends and close friends, and how we are still doing our dance, in service.
Beautiful. Well, amazing. Thank you so much for your work.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure to be in relationship with you and to be learning from you. And look forward to more conversations like this. Thank you for listening and watching, and love and blessings to all of you out there. Have a beautiful day.